Alright, this section has to do with comparing and ordering decimals. First, when we talk about comparing, anytime we're comparing numbers, we're going to be using these symbols up here. Okay, the greater than, less than, or equal to. Okay, that's what comparing means in math. Alright, so if we look at the first example, we have 4.8 and 4.83. The first thing that I notice is that here my 8 is in the tenths, and then here I have 8.3, which is 83 hundredths. My biggest hint to you all is try to what we call annex zeros to make the place values the same. So in other words, I want to add a 0 to the end of the 4.8 to make it into the hundredths. So I'm going to do that by just annexing a 0. And when you annex zeros to the end of any decimal, it does not change the value of the decimal. I think that's important to note. In this one, we're going to leave the same. Now, once the place values are exactly the same, I can then just compare the two numbers after the decimal. Well, which is bigger, 80 or 83? Well, that's very simple now. 83 is bigger. Alright, so that is how we do that. So if I look at this example right here, again I notice that my numbers after the decimal are not in the same place value. Here we have 12 and 75 hundredths, and in this example we have 12 and 749 thousandths. So I'm going to annex a 0 here, making it 12.750. Okay, that's where I'm annexing my 0. And then this one stays the same. And again, I can just simply compare now using the numbers at the end of the decimal. So which is bigger, 750 or 749? 750 is bigger. So 12.75 would be bigger than 12.4749. Then in this last example here, okay, we have 32.8 and 32.80. Again, I notice that I only have tenths here and I have hundredths shown here. So I'm going to annex the 0, making this 32.80, and this one stays the same. And look at there. If I look at those two numbers at the end, I notice that they are in fact equal, which means these two numbers are equal. Alright, the next thing is I'm going to ask you to list numbers either from least to greatest or greatest to least. And in this case, I asked you to list them from least to greatest. That's my L to G. And if just looking at this list intimidates you, remember what I just told you. Make all your place values the same. That way you can just look at the numbers after the decimal. So I noticed that all of these are shown in the thousandths. And this one is only shown in the hundredths. So I'm going to go ahead and annex a 0 here, making this 8.23, and I'm adding that 0. And I'm going to leave all the rest of them the same, because I don't need to annex any more zeros. Okay, now all I have to do is simply look at the numbers after the decimal. Now that's granted that these numbers are all the same, okay? It's a totally different story if those numbers are different, alright? But since they're the same, I can look at the numbers after the decimal and simply compare using that way. So if we're comparing least to greatest, I'm looking for my smallest number, which would be right here. So I'm going to list that one first. 8 and 123 thousandths. Go ahead and cross that one off. My next smallest would be this guy, 8 and 132 thousandths. Go ahead and cross him off. Then we have the 8 and 213 thousandths. And then last but not least is 8 and 230 thousandths. Okay? And that is how you order decimals.